What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel, and what a way to start a bank holiday weekend. What a game. Aston Villa 0, Arsenal 2, exactly the scoreline I predicted. But if I'm totally honest, I was really worried about this game. Not just because Aston Villa were our bogey side last season, and even though I thought we played better than them in both the home and away game defeats, it's more that it's the sort of start of a new season. I know that we haven't made any dramatic changes. It's only Calafiori that's come in so far, but you still get a feeling that players haven't really clicked in yet and haven't really found their top gear. The game against Wolves was a little underwhelming, but very professional and businesslike. And Aston Villa away just seemed like a really tough game to have for your second game of the season. I mean, not to mention the fact that we've got Tottenham away and Man City away all in the next couple of weeks. It just feels like a lot is at stake early on in the season. And these games make a massive difference, even though they are early in the season. So the fact that we came away with a win wasn't the prettiest game in the world. And it certainly wasn't one of our best performances. You can take a lot from it, though. But it was iconic in lots of ways. Of course, right after the game, everybody is talking about David Raya's phenomenal save. I don't want to be hugely controversial. I do think he's made two outstanding saves in the last two games, which potentially could have helped to secure all 3 points on both occasions. His save against Wolves was brilliant and instinctive. And this one is a sort of save that you see them practicing all the time just before kickoff. They get down and they jump up as quickly as possible. And that's exactly what Raya did. The reality of this game was that going in at half-time, we'd had a couple of chances. Nothing really solid, nothing really on target. I know Declan Rice's shot when the ball bobbled loose was on target, but nothing really to trouble Martinez in goal. And, of course, Ollie Watkins, going in half-time, had missed an absolute sitter. When Gabriel is hustled off the ball by Rodgers, uncharacteristically, that gegenpress where they win the ball in dangerous situations. Ball to Watkins, and he's got acres to aim at, and inexplicably sort of stumbles over his feet, and the ball goes wide. And that kind of gave me confidence. But at half-time, I was listening to Deluded Gooners watch along, and somebody in his comments said, Arteta needs to make changes at half-time. And Deluded actually said how I felt. And he said, I hope he doesn't. I hope he gives it 10 more minutes, because the game was on a knife edge. And it was clear that it wasn't quite working for Martinelli. Obviously, at the start of the game, he was one of the question marks. Would you start Trossard? Would you start Martinelli? Of course, it's easy to be wise after the event. I actually felt I probably would have started Martinelli just because I think I was expecting Villa to come at us a little bit more. But they didn't. They sat back. And I think it's a sign of how far we've come as a football team. That even Champions League teams, they've spent a decent amount of money. Top four teams, when we visit them, are sitting back and allowing us more of the ball and more of the game. But for whichever reason, Martinelli's end product just wasn't there. His confidence is not there at the moment. I don't think he had a terrible season last season. I do feel that most of our creativity came down the right. But then you're looking at a right side of the pitch that has Ben White, the best right back in the country at the moment, Martin Odegaard, our creative captain, and Saka, and their trio is working really well. Whereas on the left, you had a succession of different players, with Zinchenko injured, Tomiyasu tried for a little while, Jakub Kiwior, all different players. And of course, we missed that Granit Xhaka influence in the middle. We tried Kai Havertz there. We did not have a setup on the left that was conducive to the kind of football that we wanted to play. The other big decision facing Arteta at the start of the game was whether or not to play Jurriën Timber or Zinchenko. Zinchenko gets an awful lot of stick for his defending. I don't think it's all deserved, but Jurriën Timber was chosen ahead, and that gave us a little bit more stability, and Martinelli did have the space to run into, but as I said, just the end product wasn't there. So at half-time, it would have been tempting to take him off and bring on Trossard, but Arteta did give it time, more than 10 minutes. He actually gave it 20 minutes, and Wouldn't you know it, Trossard comes on and scores the goal. And this is the iconic moment that I really want us to look at and talk about. But listen, if you haven't yet, make sure you click like. For small channels, the like button is worth its weight in gold. Bad example because it doesn't weigh anything. But like is really important. Like important. Do it now. I'll wait. Thanks so much. And if you haven't, subscribe as well. So he does make the change. Trossard comes on for Martinelli, and it takes him 2 minutes and 1 touch to put us a goal ahead. Outstanding. And the whole place, and every Arsenal fan up and down the country is ecstasy, absolutely delighted. We know how close we've come, because before that had happened, Ollie Watkins had the header that we talked about, the fantastic save by David Raya, which is an instinctive save, but he doesn't just save it, he puts it out of danger. And so we'd been living on our nerves a little bit. And it was that period of the game where the first time Aston Villa had some concerted pressure and looked like they were going to go ahead. So for us to take the lead, such an important moment, such an important part of the game to do it as well, because you know how well we hang on defensively. So then there's Trossard's celebration. And, I've never seen one like it. And as I said at the start, this game is going to be remembered for so many iconic moments. There's a lovely moment also where Saliba causes 2 Villa players to run into each other after he's done a fantastic bit of defending and getting back to deny a goal-scoring opportunity. I mean, he is an outstanding player. And if he can play every minute of the season again this season, our defence looks so great at the moment. Other iconic moments, obviously, is the point at which Ben White kicks the ball at John McGinn because he's kicked it into Saliba. And it was such an instinctive defence of his player. It looked like there was going to be a fracas, nothing like it used to be in the olden days, but just a lot of handbags and pushing and shoving. But that fighting spirit was there. And you see that, I think, that kind of warrior spirit in the celebration, except for Trossard, who gets manhandled by absolutely everybody. Everybody's thrilled he scored. Saliba insists he does his goggles. But he just cool as a cucumber, just standing there like nothing's happened. Like the only calm one in the storm. And at the time, obviously, I'm still celebrating and I'm ecstatic. But at the end of the game, when everybody starts reflecting on it, Trossard's interview and Arteta's interview, you got a feeling like, was this a protest? And that's my question to you. Was Trossard's celebration an act of defiance? Was he saying to Arteta, you should be playing me? Because certainly, in terms of impact, Trossard does make the difference, but he doesn't always make the difference at the start. And if he is saying that he should be playing him, and he is saying that Martinelli should be dropped, Arteta handled it really well, I thought, in a post-match press conference and interview where he was talking about, of course, Trossard's not happy on the bench. Trossard himself, though, when interviewed, said it doesn't really matter if I get game time off the bench or not, as long as I can contribute. He said all the right things. But does that celebration really say more than anything he said afterwards? Or was he just trying to be cool? In his own words, he actually said that you don't really know what you're doing when you've scored a goal like that. Certainly Thomas Partey was a lot more celebratory when he scored the second and the goal that actually put the game to bed in the end. So what if Trossard is really upset that he's not getting more game time? I mean, he did play 34 games last season, even if he only started... Well, he did play 34 games last season, but he did only start 18. The reality of Trossard, though, is that, and he said this about himself, he's one of those intelligent footballers who does get a lot from watching the game. His goal came as a result of his intelligence. He kind of had this feeling that the ball would break loose to the penalty spot, and he made his way there. And even though the ball takes a bit of a knock off a Villa player and changes course before it gets to him, his touch is so assured and he's absolutely lethal as a finisher. He's got to be our best finisher. So does it help him to be sitting on the bench for a large part of the game? Does it also help him that when he comes on, he's got fresh legs? Does having Martinelli on to run at players for the first 60 minutes tire them out and give them something to worry about? And then when you bring Trossard on, he's a much trickier prospect in terms of drifting around. But his pace isn't quite the same. And then there's also, forgive me, but I can understand if Arteta is playing Martinelli to try and get him through a lack of confidence, because he does look like he lacks confidence. And that's something I've never been able to say about Trossard. All this considered, I think that either he is protesting his lack of minutes, although he hasn't played that few minutes, or And he is kind of saying, look, I'm better than Martinelli, why can't I start? Which I think is fair. But the reality is that he will almost certainly start against Brighton. And then it's on Trossard, because the criticism, if there is a criticism, and he's been one of our best ever signings, and certainly at the price we paid for him, it's got to be the only time Brighton have ever sold someone cheaply that was that good. But he does have to prove it when he starts, and that's not always the case. He started against Tottenham and didn't play that well. He's a sort of player that you could call an impact sub, and we really don't have many of those. But I think that Martinelli being dropped to the bench probably won't do his confidence a great deal of good. Nor will Fabio Vieira, apparently his best friend in the squad, leaving to go to Porto. And there are obviously rumours about us bringing in someone like Nico Williams, and that's more likely to have an impact on his position. I love Martinelli. I know we all do. And I really hope he works his way through this. I think, though, the best I've seen him play more recently in the final game of the season was on the right-hand side. So there is a way you could play both of them and occasionally give Bukayo Saka a rest. This season, Arteta has said he is committed to rotation, to bringing through some of the academy players, and I think both of those two things probably have a bigger impact on our title run than even signing a big name player like an Osimhen or a Nico Williams. Although I am still hopeful about Nico Williams. Anyway, let me know what you think. Was Trossard's celebration or uncelebration the result of being peed off with Arteta not playing him often enough? Or was it just him being ice cool? And whatever the case, that is a celebration or uncelebration we are going to be talking about for a very long time. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this video. I'm off to watch Liverpool play Brentford. I have a feeling it's going to be quite a good game, and it might go against Liverpool. Anyway, until I see you again, be lucky. Lots of love.